Oh, it's still recording. Hello, this is Sally, and I'm going to be reading Sally a bedtime story from the Grimm's fairy tales called The Frog King. It's one of my favorites. The Frog King. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which had seen so much, was astonished whenever it had shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest, and under the old lime tree in the forest was a well. And when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And when she was bored, she took a golden ball and threw it up in the air high and caught it. And this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but onto the ground beyond, and it rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. At this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and she could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, "What ails you, king's daughter? You weep so that even a stone would show pity." She looked round from side and from whence the voice came from, and saw a frog stretching forth in its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, it's you," said she. "I am weeping for my golden ball which has fallen deep into the well." "Be quiet and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help you, but what will you give me if I should bring your plaything up again?" "Whatever you will have, dear frog," said she. "My clothes, my pearls, my jewelry, and even the golden crown which I'm wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for your clothes, your pearls, or your jewels, or for your golden crown. But if you will love me and let me be your companion and playfellow, and sit by you in your little table, and eat off your golden little plate, and drink out of your little cup, and sleep in your little bed, if you promise me this, I will go down below and bring you your golden ball up again." "Oh, yes," said she, "I promise you all you wish, and if you but bring me my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk. He lives in the water with the other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he had received the promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short time came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth. Oh, and he threw it into the grass. He threw it into the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything again, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog. "Take me with you. I can run as you can." But what did it avail to him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? But she did not listen to it, but ran home, and soon the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at the table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping splish, splash, splish, splash up. up the marble staircase. And when he got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside. When she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. What a little, you know what? The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently and said, "My child, what are you so afraid of? Is there a pensions a great outside? Is there a pensions a great outside who wants to carry you away?" "Ah, no," replied she. "It is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "What does this frog want from you?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday, when I was in the forest, sitting by the well, playing, my golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried so, the frog brought it out again once for me. And because he insisted so much on it, I promised him that he should be my companion. But I never thought he would be able to come out of the water, and now he is outside there, and he wants to come to me." In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Do you not know what you said to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Open the door for me." Then the king said, "That which you have promised must you perform. Go and let him in." She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her step by step to her chair. There he sat still and cried, "Lift me up beside you." She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do so. Once the frog was on the chair, he wanted to be on the table. And when he was on the table, he said, "Now push your little golden plate nearer to me so that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but most every mouthful the princess choked her. At length he said, "I have eaten, and I am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into your little room and make me a little silken bed ready. And make your little silken bed ready, and we'll both lie down and go to sleep." Okay, you're paying attention. That's good. Okay, sorry. The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, and it was now to sleep in her pretty clean bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped you when you were in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by you." She took hold of the frog with her 2 fingers and carried him upstairs and put him in the corner. When she was in bed, he crept to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as you. Lift me up, or I will tell your father." Then she was terribly angry and took him up and threw him with all of her might against the wall. "Now you'll be quiet, odious frog," said she. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son with beautiful kind eyes. He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. Then he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and the next morning when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads and were harnessed by golden chains, and behind them stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master had been changed into a frog that he caused 3 iron bands to be laid around his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in and placed himself behind again, and there was a full joy of his deliverance. When they had driven part of the way, the king's son heard a crackling behind him, as if something had broken. So he turned round and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking!" "No, master, it's not the carriage. It is the band from my heart, which was put there in great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again, and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking. But it was only the bands which were springing free of the heart of Faithful Henry, because his master was set free and happy. "'Twas a good story, was it not?" Good night, y'all.